I stumbled upon 3 true crazy Craigslist horror stories that will leave you screaming, "I never should have opened that door." But there I was, standing with trembling hands, the cold metal knob pressing against my palm like a sinister promise. My heart raced. My breath hitched. What if? What if? They say curiosity killed the cat. But I had to know what lay behind it, right? I was just finishing my daily routine. A mundane life in my cramped apartment, scrolling through Craigslist for a cheap couch. A whiff of stale pizza from last week lingered in the air, mingling with the faint odor of sweat. Then I stumbled upon an ad. Free to a good home. Vintage piano, a mystery to uncover. My heart jumped. I could picture it dusty with a ghostly charm. The shadows curled in the corners of my dim apartment as I clicked the link, darkness seeping from the screen. I was drawn in. The post had ominous images, a cracked, weathered piano, and beside it, a figure just barely visible, like a whisper in the night. The eerie vibes wrapped around me like a fog. What was that? Presence? I felt cold creeping up my spine. Suddenly, I heard a creak. Just the floorboards, I told myself. But then came the sound so soft, so haunting, like a childish giggle echoing in the stillness. My pulse raced. My world felt distorted. Shadows danced across the walls, shapes moving where there shouldn't be any. I hesitated. Every hair on my arms stood up. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, questioning every thought as goosebumps prickled at my neck. Was it just my imagination? Or was something really there? The whispers grew louder, wrapping around me, pulling me in. I could almost make out words. They felt familiar yet foreign. Was my mind playing tricks? My rational brain sought comfort in logic while my emotions spiraled. The walls closed in, tightening, suffocating. The air thickened, holding secrets I wasn't ready to uncover. I fought against the urge to run, but something urged me to stay, to listen. Then silence. An oppressive, suffocating silence. My heart beat like a war drum. I braced myself. The sounds of rustling filled my ears, and the shadow shifted again. This was it. My breaking point. I glanced toward the door, my body tensed, an instinctual battle between flight and fight raging within me. With a swift breath, I opened the door. Just a crack. A gust of icy wind rushed in, carrying an echo of that laugh, piercing, chilling. From the darkness, a figure emerged. All I could see were those eyes, glowing like lanterns in the night. My scream lodged in my throat, a final plea caught in the grip of pure terror. And then, everything went black. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness retreated sluggishly, as if it were a living thing. I blinked against the absence of light, my pulse hammering like thunder in my ears. Had I fainted? Or was it the figure? Instinctively, I reached for my phone, the small screen flickering as I turned it on, casting a pale glow around me. I was still in my apartment, yet everything felt disturbingly altered. The shadows stretched unnaturally, claws reaching toward me, and the familiar contours of my furniture warped into grotesque shapes. Something wasn't right. My throat tightened. I could feel the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me. Then, I remembered the piano, the article I had read. A fleeting moment of clarity pierced through the haze of dread. Had I really invited something into my home? The chilling laughter echoed again, reverberating against the walls, almost mocking me. I stumbled back, the air thick with an uncanny energy, and my heart sank as I noticed an object on the ground where I had stood. Bathed in the eerie glow of my phone, it was a small, tattered note, its edges frayed as if it had been torn from something sacred. Uncertain, I knelt down to pick it up. as I recited the words scrawled hurriedly across the page. Trust nothing. The music calls you home. My gut clenched. Home? But who was home? And why couldn't I shake the feeling that someone or something was lurking just out of sight? The piano felt like an anchor dragging me back to the abyss. Without fully realizing it, I was gliding toward the open door that had conjured that figure. The soft cadence of a distant melody floated in the air, resonating with a familiarity that sent shivers along my spine. I didn't recognize it, yet it felt like a memory I had never lived. As I stepped into the dim hallway, the air changed, thickening with foreboding. Each step brought a cacophony of whispers, swirling around me as I edged toward the living room. With every beat of that insistent melody, bile rose in the back of my throat. I found the piano illuminated now by a ghostly light, its keys glistening like pearly teeth in the gloom. But my heart sank further when I noticed a small figure, a child, fragile and spectral, sitting on the bench in front of the piano, fingers poised above the keys, as if waiting for permission to play. It turned its head slowly, and I found myself staring into hollow eyes that pulled me in dark voids echoing with secrets and fears. Come closer, it whispered, its voice crackling like dead leaves. You're the one the music chose. The room spun as an unseen force compelled me forward, a magnetism I couldn't resist, yet my instincts screamed for me to flee. I felt the tendrils of despair clawing at my heart. It was as though the walls had leaned closer, enveloping me in a suffocating embrace. Please, I stammered, choking back panic. What do you want from me? Play with me, it cooed, and at that moment, the melody swelled, wrapping around us like a shroud made of sound. A beckoning, a promise. Suddenly, the piano's hammers struck, keys pressing independently as if possessed. I stumbled back, but the child smiled, lips stretching into a rictus of joy. Each note rang out, drumming into my mind, a heartbeat of despair. The walls groaned, fissures appearing like veins pulsing with life. Then I saw it, a fleeting glimpse of movement behind the figure, a swarm of shadows coalescing, growing. They stretched toward me, monstrous and insatiable. Join us, the child shrieked, the sound twisting into a grotesque symphony. You belong to the music now. I turned to run, but the door slammed shut, as if sealing my fate. Darkness surged around me, the laughter crescendoing, surrounding me like a tidal wave. I braced for impact while the child turned back to the piano, laughter mingling with the haunting melody now dominating my thoughts. And then, in the deepest recess of my mind, I heard it, a whisper, fragile like glass, but it was a promise of something unfathomable. Embrace what you fear. That S when the laughter ceased, replaced by a single note hanging in the air. Resonating tone that morphed into a scream, a cry that shattered time and space. Just as I thought I could escape, the shadows lunged forth. Gripped by sheer terror, I felt the chill of their presence crawling along my skin. And then, in the dark, I felt hands grasping for me. It was just the beginning of the descent into that cursed melody. The last thing I heard before darkness swallowed me whole was the echoing command from the child behind me, sing. The world around me melted into darkness, the shadows eagerly curling around me like serpents seeking warmth. I was drowning, lost in a void where sound and reason twisted into a horrific ballet. My heart pounded, each beat a drum summoning the ancient spirits that lay just beyond perception. Sing, the child had commanded. But with the word came a haunting memory that splintered through the fog in my mind, a hidden melody buried beneath layers of time, one that danced upon the precipice of recognition, taunting me with its familiarity. My throat constricted as I grappled with the voices splitting my consciousness, each echo an insistent pull toward something darker. Cascades of dissonance enveloped me, the laughter morphing into cries of anguish, mingling with a spectral chorus that spoke of despair, loss, and a longing for release. They echoed through the walls of my apartment, transforming it into a living entity, pulsating in rhythm with the unmistakable urge that now swelled within me. I opened my mouth, compelled to respond. The sound that emerged was an anguished whisper, a croak that echoed my deepest fears. The shadows embraced me tighter, encouraging this dark offering, urging me to channel the grief and sorrow they craved. It was intoxicating, It was familiar. The keys of the piano shimmered with an unholy light as if they could perceive the grim thoughts forming in the caverns of my heart. In an otherworldly trance, I stumbled toward it, fingers hovering just above the keys, as though they already remembered the tune intimately. With every inch I moved closer, the room trembled, walls oozing an ethereal essence that resisted the touch of reality as I knew it. I could almost hear fragments of a long-forgotten song weaving a web around my senses, pulling me deeper into its embrace. The child at the piano kept smiling, an innocent facade masking the predator it had become. Its eyes locked on me like a lighthouse guiding me toward a treacherous yet alluring shore. Play, it urged, but I hesitated. An ice-cold breath brushed against my neck, a painful reminder that I was not alone. I turned, heart racing, but the darkness had come to life. Tendrils reached for me, formed by the fear that had taken root in the very marrow of my bones. They wrapped around my ankles, pulling me down, dragging me toward the floor, creating a cacophony of shrill laughter and despair. Play. The child cried once more, desperate yet jubilant. The sound slid through my mind, provoking a response from the nightmare that now embraced me. I recognized the pull of the melody and the raw pain it carried. It begged to escape, to manifest itself through my fingers on those keys. The specter of the child loomed larger, teeth gleaming, eyes wild with expectation. My body was no longer my own. It surged with an energy that felt both foreign and terrifyingly familiar. I felt the weight of memories pressing into my chest, reclaiming pieces of me I thought long lost to oblivion. Then, as if possessed by the very spirits that lingered in the shadows, I pressed down on a key. The sound resonated through me, a mournful note that split the air like a knife, yanking me involuntarily into the abyss of a forgotten ballad. From the darkness, whispering voices crescendoed into a chorus as I played, an irresistible force guiding my fingers over the keys, a harmonious nightmare unfolding. The music twisted through the room, shape-shifting the very fabric of space, and the piano began to glow brighter, illuminating the gathering shapes around me, a legion of figures emerging from the shadows, gaunt and sorrowful, their hollow eyes fixated on my performance. They moved to the rhythm, a dance of longing and despair, their bodies shifting with the flow of the song, haunting apparitions. In a moment of clarity, I recognized them. Faces from slaughtered tales, ones that echoed through history, lost children, forgotten lovers, souls abandoned to time. Their voices harmonized with mine, weaving my sadness into their own, creating a tapestry of anguish. With every note, the little figure pulsed with glee, reveling in the melding of our spirits. A dark power surged through me, a revelation that sent shockwaves of horror through my veins. I was not merely playing. I was conducting a symphony of the damned. Suddenly, the room around me quaked with an unfathomable force. The walls pulsed violently, and I understood that something was shifting, something ancient and malevolent. The music had summoned a presence that had been lingering, dormant, until now a voice boomed above the cacophony, deep and resonating. A sound so powerful it sent vibrations through my bones. "You have awakened us," it bellowed, malevolent joy seeping into the air like poison. "We shall feast on your fear." My fingers faltered above the keys as the reality dawned upon me. I was not playing for the damned but for the darkness itself. I was the vessel, and they, the shadows, hungered for more than just a song. They sought my very soul. As terror seized my heart, the shadows lunged in unison, coiling around me like a net, each face of the lost merging into a grotesque expression of delight, devouring the very essence of my being. And with an electrifying surge, I felt the piano erupt with energy. The final note echoed wildly, a sound so piercing it shattered the darkness, leaving me breathless in the aftermath. Just as I thought I could cease, a blinding light erupted from the piano, illuminating the room in a dazzling glow. But in that illumination, I saw it, the figure of a beautiful woman emerging from the shadows, the same woman I had seen in distant dreams, smiling with a tenderness I could almost taste. She stretched a hand towards me, eyes glistening with both hope and despair, and with a voice laced in sorrow, she uttered the words that shattered the silence. "Will you let me save you?" or will you join them forever? And right then, every shadow lunged forward, grasping, clinging, as the music surged. The echoes of laughter flooded my mind again, drowning out her voice as it all began to fade away, and I was left spinning in a vortex of sound and shadow, gripping the sliver of choice that danced dangerously before me, wavering like a flame about to go out. Then, as the echoes drowned in the surge of colliding darkness, I heard the command clearly for the last time. Choose. The choice hung in the air like a sharpened blade, shimmering with the weight of consequence. My instincts screamed to flee, to escape the hellish dance that threatened to consume me. But the shadows wrapped around me like a lover's embrace, urging me to dive deeper into the abyss. Join us. The voices blended into one relentless chorus, their alluring lilt promising peace if I surrendered. The woman was still there, a flicker of warmth in this nightmarish realm, but the shadows pulsed and churned, drowning her out, their laughter now a symphony of taunts. You have already begun. The piano hummed with ominous energy, the glossy black surface reflecting both the darkness and the bright specter of hope. My fingers twitched, instinctively reaching back toward the keys, even as my mind warred within itself. I was terrified of what I might unleash, both from the shadows and from deep within my own fractured soul. Will you allow them to consume you? She asked again, her words slicing through the chaos, piercing my heart like a lover's regret. Or will you choose to fight? With every moment that passed, the shadows writhed with impatience, their forms dancing erratically, transforming from lost children to grotesque horrors with mouths full of jagged teeth, hungry for my fear and resignation. I could see them more clearly now. Twisted faces I had long forgotten, memories of lives intertwined with mine, every wretched soul screaming for validation, for acceptance. Do it, the child crooned, eyes aglow with mischief as it leered at me from the corner of the room. Breathe life into our symphony. Let us remember who we are. The thought clawed at me, and the air itself thickened with dread. I was teetering at the edge of a precipice that dared me to plummet into madness, but the woman's gaze anchored me. It glimmered with something akin to empathy, a promise that salvation was not impossible but narrow. Remember, she whispered, the warmth of her voice shedding shimmering tears into the dark canvas surrounding us. You have the power to reshape this darkness. Only you can break the cycle. Time stretched impossibly as I hovered between the world of light and the suffocating maw of the shadows. I could almost hear the heartbeat of the piano, a powerful thud that synchronized with my racing thoughts. Resisting for now, I closed my eyes, desperately searching for the piece of me that wasn't overwhelmed. Yet, within the cavern of my heart, a dark recognition festered how much of this madness was my own. Then, as if answering my silent confession, the spell I had unknowingly cast upon myself began to unravel. The melody morphed, twisting from a mournful lament to a primal rapture. The fingers of dark tendrils scraped across my skin, urging the chaotic notes to explode from my being, to embrace the horror that demanded release. I leapt back from the keys, repulsed. No, I shouted, but that single denial only intensified the shadows' fervor. It was as if they had taken my hesitation as a cue to escalate their onslaught. They lunged, whispering promises of power and resolve burrowing deep into my psyche. Take our hand, the darkness hissed, and let us feel once more. The cacophony of screams reached a fever pitch, blending with the crash of desperate laughter that echoed through the apartment as they morphing into a terror-stricken chant, urging me on. With a sudden jolt, I recalled a time before the shadows, a time when my life thrummed with vibrancy and possibilities. In that moment, I felt the warmth of hope flare within me, igniting the defiance I desperately held onto. Could I muster the strength to reclaim my narrative, to defy the whispers clamoring for my submission? No, I roared again, thrusting my hands away from the piano. The air crackled with energy as I fought against the tidal wave of darkness, desperate to be seen as more than just a vessel. The shadows coiled tightly around my limbs as if sensing my resolve, the wails of the tormented surging into a tempest of rage and sorrow. The piano reverberated, wild and fierce, the final note, exploding like a bombshell. I could feel the echoes of despair hitting against the walls, vibrating with a fervor that rattled my very bones. Then came the scream, a haunting wail that shattered through the tumult, halting the shadows mid-motion. It wasn't Timmy. It was the woman, and for the briefest of seconds, time froze as all eyes fell upon her. Please. She seemed to dim with every word, the light surrounding her flickering like a candle caught in the wind. Do not allow them to bury you. No more. The shadows seized her with a furious hunger, swallowing her in an instant. The last flicker of light extinguished in a brilliant flash. The room plunged into absolute darkness. In that moment, fear surged through every fiber of my being. I was utterly alone. The safety of choice ripped forcefully from my grasp. What had I done? My heart raced as the weight of 1,000 souls threatened to crush me beneath its lament. And then, piercing the oppressive silence, a new voice emerged, clear and chilling. It's your turn to join us, conductor. A figure loomed behind me, cold breaths fanning my neck. I turned slowly, dread pooling into something far worse than I could have imagined. And there stood the child, grinning wider than ever, flanked by the remnants of those it had claimed. Play for us, it whispered, reaching out a bony finger, a twisted invitation that promised no escape from this symphony of horror. As the tendrils of shadows surged toward me, I realized I had two options that fateful night: to surrender and join the damned in their eternal lament, or fight and risk awakening something far more monstrous hidden within the darkness. But as I grasped the air, ready to scream, "Don't you see? The choice was never mine to begin with." The piano erupted into a painful cacophony, echoing the command that would change everything. Let us begin. The world around me warped as chaos engulfed my senses. The spectral figure loomed even closer, its wicked grin splitting its face like a grotesque mask, taunting me with the very shadows I feared. Wisps of darkness streamed from its form, curling with malevolence, as if they had grown sentient, eager to ensnare me within their suffocating embrace. Are you ready? The child's voice echoed, a calm amidst the storm, imbued with a sinister joy that sent chills skimming up my spine. They've waited so long for someone like you. My heart thundered ferociously against my ribcage, an unintelligible rhythm that mimicked the thrum of the piano, its keys shimmering menacingly, beckoning me to unleash the horrific symphony it housed. Desperately, I staggered backward, my breath quickening. But the walls seemed to close in, the darkness coiling closer, squeezing the very essence of who I was. Flecks of light flickered around us, remnants of the woman's luminous spirit mingling with the encroaching shadows, fighting to assert themselves amid the overwhelming dread. I realized the warmth had been reduced to a faint glow. She had given everything to protect me, now lost forever in the night, an echo of anguish reverberating throughout the void. Don't fight it, dear conductor, the child crooned playfully, tilting its head as if assessing me through innocent eyes. We can be a symphony like no other. A sound echoed in the air, a distant whisper, laced with the wails of those who had come before me. The cacophony surged again, wrapping around my ears, pulling my consciousness into a cavern of despair. But alongside the despair rippled something darker, a tantalizing pulse of power, offering invocation. I was both terrified and drawn in, teetering on the precipice of salvation and damnation. Play. It was a guttural roar now, vibrating with a dark cadence, emanating from beneath the floorboards. The shadows swelled as they sought to engulf my essence, spinning a web that threatened to swallow every flicker of light left inside. The child stepped closer, aura of shadows spiraling around it, golden eyes alight with mischief and a morbid understanding. Or be consumed. Don't be shy, join us. Set them free, it urged, outstretching its skeletal finger again, as if making a gentle yet lethal invitation. Suddenly, the darkness shifted, revealing glimpses of the tormented souls. Faces twisted and contorted, all staring at me with pleading eyes, their mouths silently mirroring eternal cries. The memory of the woman's spirit locked within me screamed for resolution. The realization hit: if I played, I wouldn't control the symphony. I would become part of it, just another lost soul in their maelstrom of torment. Yet, to resist would mean to surrender completely to the crushing weight of despair. "Let your pain resonate, conductor," the child insisted, its voice now laced with an intoxicating urgency. "Remember, give them voice." I grasped my trembling hands against the keys, caught in a fleeting moment of decision. Each shadow, each tortured face, seemed to chant in a chorus only I could hear, building the pressure with each passing second. The memories of a life I could barely recall flickered through my mind: laughter, warmth, safety clashing violently against the clamor of dread and sorrow. Then, as if on cue, the piano rippled with murky energy, resonating far beyond my control. My fingers sank into the keys, a terrible compulsion that welled up from within. An agonized symphony wrung from the depths of my soul erupted forth, entwining with the wails of the damned, merging their anguish with my own. "No!" I screamed internally, fighting the manipulation, but the shadows dug deeper, every note of reluctant resistance becoming fuel for my involuntary song. With every note played, specters danced in wild abandon, their movements ravenous, their form shifting between agony and ecstasy, laced with a manic energy that surged through me. The child laughed, the shadows swirling tighter around my limbs, their fingers weaving into my flesh, puncturing my resolve. "See?" Taunted, delighting in the horror I failed to escape. "You're already ours." And then I felt it, a heart-pulsing connection, not only with the shadows but with something far darker, hidden deep beneath the chaos. It stirred, ominous and patient, waiting for its cue to spread its wings, relishing the chaos tangling within, and it began to rise within me. It whispered to my soul, wrapping tendrils of temptation around the very essence of my being. But a rage surged alongside my fear, a conflict beyond what I had known. It brewed within a cauldron of emotions, pulsating wildly. If only I could harness it, wrest it from the dark entity claiming my soul. With each keystroke, I glimpsed fractures in the reality before me, taunting shadows blending with flashes of my forgotten past. Cries beckoned, guilt surged, desperation flared. "Embrace what you are," the child coaxed, spreading its arms wide like a shepherd leading lost lambs. "Play. Show them the beauty of despair." And ahead, something stirred, something terrible, ready to break loose, nudging within my chest. In that instant the boundaries crumbled. "Let it out," it whispered, beckoning, ethereal hands clawing at the edges of my consciousness. My body jerked, a power of malevolence seeping through my fingertips. And as it seared through the notes standing between salvation and obliteration, the very fabric of my existence ruptured like a dam. Ready to let loose, a figure broke free from the dark, a silhouette emerging from the chaos, its features hidden from view, yet I could feel the overwhelming presence of ancient dread materializing. But before I could fully grasp the enormity of this entity's arrival, a defiant scream shattered the symphonic horror, a voice unyielding, filled with purpose. "No, this ends now." Pain erupted like wildfire within my chest, and consciousness spiraled, teetering on the brink. As I realized this would be the moment that unraveled everything. "Who dares?" thundered the shadowy figure as the darkness writhed in response. And then, everything shattered in a cacophony of anguish, the notes fracturing, reverberating through the very air I breathed, a scream wrenched from my core, unbidden and raw. All went black. In the abyss, whispers flickered like candlelight, each promise and threat coiling tighter around me, meandering into an enveloping stillness where nothing seemed to exist yet everything threatened to consume. And then, as I struggled in the dark, indiscriminate void, I felt a warm hand clasp my shoulder. "You never really chose, did you?" A voice sighed, soft and ominous, having traversed the void to find me. And the shadows began to writhe anew, their hunger insatiable. It had only just begun. The darkness pulsed around me, a heart of shadows throbbing with a rhythm that matched my own erratic heartbeat. I couldn't see where I was or how I had arrived at this desolate place, but the warmth of the hand on my shoulder brought a flicker of clarity, an inexplicable connection etched with dread. "Who are you? What do you want?" I managed to choke out, my voice a mere whisper in the clamor of despair that echoed around me. "Oh, dear conductor," the voice cooed, a chilling caress that sent ice snaking down my spine. It was familiar yet stranger than anything I had ever known. "I've come to guide you through the shadows. You've begun a journey that will unlock the deepest secrets of your own sorrow." The shadows shifted, swirling like a tempest, their whispers growing louder, each syllable an echo of long-forgotten tales of suffering. Ghostly figures flickered in the corners of my vision, their mournful eyes locked onto mine, ready to ensnare me with their pain. "Listen," the voice said, its tone tantalizingly sweet. "You are not alone in this. Many have tread these halls before you, lost and searching. We share a bond, fractured souls yearning to be whole again." I jerked away from the touch, recoiling as wisps of shadow lunged toward me in response, eager to reclaim their stake. But in the retreat, I stumbled upon something harder, colder, an object half buried beneath the wreckage of despair. As my fingers brushed against the surface, a surge of memories flooded through me. Faces smiling, laughter cascading like a waterfall, flickers of joy abruptly snuffed out by haunting specters. I yanked the object free, a shard of blackened glass, its edges sharp and jagged, reflecting the pale glimmers of tortured souls swirling into existence around me. It felt both cursed and familiar, a part of the darkness entwined within me itself. "This is where their voices were cut short, conductor," the voice urged, swirling like a tempest, wrapping itself around my senses. "The instrument of their demise. Claim it, show your will. You have the essence of the symphony within you." Screams echoed, reverberating through the chaotic air as I clutched the glass. A dreadful power stirred, igniting within the shadows, seeking to blend with the web of voices clamoring for release. I felt their anguish surge, pleading for freedom as I stood teetering on the edge. The temperature dropped, and a bone-chilling whisper brushed against my ears like the touch of ice. "You could free us, conductor. Take control of the orchestra. Play our melody, and the darkness will unveil its treasures." I swallowed hard, doubt creeping in again as I felt the shards of glass dig into my palm. A tangible reminder of the truth. I did not wish to embody the horror within, nor did I wish to orchestrate their despair. "Stay back," I yelled, nostrils flaring in panic, ready to shatter the glass in the frenzy of this awakening. But shadows curled tighter, whispering promises of power, retaliating against my resolve. "Rejecting your calling only strengthens their chains," the voice insisted, resonating deep into my mind. "They will not let you go so easily." Torn between the desire to flee the grasp of the shadows and the terrifying siren call of the glass, the agony screamed through my veins, the intensity of their cries overpowering my thoughts. In that moment, I saw fleeting glimpses of the figures. Each had a story. Each was tethered by threads of darkness, longing for an escape from their eternal torment. Before I could weave my escape, the shadows began to pulse, a scorching energy throbbing through the very air, locking me in an invisible cage. The once innocent faces contorted with rage, and their hollow whispers morphed into shrill laments screeching for attention. "Let us out. Play us back to life," they wailed, their eyes ablaze with desperation. "No," I screamed, brandishing the glass defiantly. The shadows slashed at me in a furious wave, hungry for my surrender, each forking tendril a manifestation of the terror they harbored. With a fierce determination surging within, I threw the glass against the ground, shattering reality like fine porcelain. The echoes resonated, scattering fragments of my half-formed resolve like smoke in the wind. But instead of silence, a new sound emerged, a low groan that reverberated through the void, unnatural and horrific. The walls around me began to vibrate, pulsating with an ancient energy that sent tremors through my very being, something darker awakening within the hollows. And as I staggered backward, a figure emerged from the darkness, massive, misshapen, draped in shadows, eyes fixed upon me like a predator sizing up its prey. "Foolish child," it boomed, a voice like rolling thunder, drowning out the screams of the departed. "You sought to destroy what you did not comprehend." The air thickened with a fragrance of decay, and I felt my legs buckle beneath the weight of its presence. The shadows howled, their cries mingling with my own terror as the creature stepped forward, revealing grotesque features twisted with malice. Now you will serve the orchestra instead. The world slipped into chaos, engulfing me in its clutches, as tendrils of darkness snaked around my limbs, and I felt the primal urge to scream the shadows would claim me yet again. But then, amidst the dread, clarity erupted. I was not just prey. I had become an instrument of my own fate, and that truth would either lead me to salvation or further damnation. The choice had never been clearer, to play or perish. And with a final, fervent breath, I prepared to embrace the storm, ready to unleash a terrifying symphony the world had yet to hear. But as I raised my voice into the impending darkness, ready to retake control, the air shimmered. An unexpected figure intersected my awakening, standing defiant against the maddening onslaught. "Let me show you what true power means," it hissed, and at that moment, I could only watch as reality warped into a nightmare far beyond my comprehension. The symphony was about to take a darker turn, and I was caught in a tempest I could never hope to control. The shadows twisted and writhed around me, but now they seemed to recoil from the new presence, the figure cloaked in palpable darkness. There was an uncanny familiarity to it that sent a chill racing through my veins. With every step it took towards me, I felt my hope blend with an unsettling dread. In its presence, the shadows whispered secrets, weaving around us like a sinister shroud. "Who are you?" I managed to croak, the words barely escaping my lips as my heart thundered in my chest. The air was thick with the scent of something rotten, an ancient decay that promised horror beyond comprehension. "Ah, dear conductor," the figure taunted, voice silky yet laced with malice. "I am the remnant of those who came before, the forgotten notes of the symphony that never reached its crescendo. I am your only escape from this cacophony." The shadows writhed with renewed vigor, their cries mixing with the dissonance within me, reflecting back my own doubts and fears. I felt their icy fingers brush against my skin, urging me to listen, urging me to succumb. I cast my gaze toward the ground, the shattered glass shard now glimmering with an otherworldly light, pulsing ominously as if it was beckoning me. "Embrace the chaos. Embrace your destiny," the figure continued, moving closer until its face was illuminated by a flickering light, a pallid visage twisted into an impossible grin. It revealed mouths where none should be, whispering soft temptations that sent shivers down my spine, drowning out the plaintive wails of the trapped souls around us. Before I could respond, tendrils of darkness coiled around my waist, yanking me forward, fusing me to the figure. Fear thundered through my heart as I struggled, but it was no use. Its grip was unyielding, and the shadows danced frantically around us. "Listen, listen to them," it urged, the teeth of its smile glistening in the squalid light. "Hear their suffering. Their melodies are your keys. Only through their torment can you wield the power you crave." The figures from the shadows, once lost in their moans, now surfaced like fish drawn to bait, their eyes wide and desperate, screaming for deliverance. The weight of their agony fell upon me like a shroud, and I could almost hear the disjointed notes of their broken songs vibrating through the air, a terrible harmony that was both intoxicating and repulsive. "No," I shouted, breaking away from the grasp for a fleeting moment, pushing against the tide of shadow as I swayed in anguish. "I want to play their requiem. I want to chain myself to their pain." The creature laughed, a deep, resounding sound that echoed through the hollow abyss, rattling my very bones. "You think you have a choice? They will consume you for the sins of your past. Join them or be devoured." In that moment of desperation, I remembered the shard. Its jagged surface gleamed like dark starlight, alive with potential, and I reached for it, feeling the raw energy pulsing from it, teasing my skin. I could harness their pain, channel it. Perhaps this darkness could be my ally, a way to stand against the insatiable void attempting to envelop me. But as I grasped the shard tighter, the world around me splintered and warped. The walls flickered, revealing horrific visions of the past, as if the shadows were pulling back a curtain on sorrows long buried. Faces of those I had loved twisted in agony, their silent screams clawing through time, echoing within the very marrow of my being. "Stop it!" I shrieked, the horrified memories threatening to drown me in remorse. With a primal instinct, I thrust the shard into the pulsating darkness, determined to sever the ties binding me to the haunting echoes of despair. The darkness trembled, a cacophony of wails erupting from the shadows as they recoiled, the discordant melody turning into frantic panic. The creature before me shrieked a sound so inhuman it cracked the very ground beneath us. "No! You dare oppose me?" The shadows raged, a storm of fury, slashing at me with ethereal claws, trying to reclaim their hold on my soul. Before I could react, a blinding light surged from the shard, consuming the darkness in its entirety. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but brilliance, a celestial pulse crashing through the void, enveloping me in a cocoon of brilliant energy. But as quickly as it had come, the light dimmed, leaving behind an inky blackness that rippled with the residual energy of torment. I fell backward, the world spinning, grappling to maintain my grip on reality. I gasped for breath, but a sudden coldness swept over me, an echoing pulse that felt altogether different, deeper, heavy with malevolence. It was a heartbeat, booming from the shadows, drawing near. "What did you do, conductor?" The figure hissed, its face now contorted into a mask of rage. "You have awakened something far worse. It hungers, and you are its bait." Suddenly, a new form began to emerge from the depths of the blackness, something towering, something ancient, its grotesque limbs stretching and folding in a way that defied nature. I could only stare in horror as it loomed above me, its eyes glinting with insatiable hunger. The realization hit me like a thunderous clap. I had unleashed a terror greater than the shadows themselves. That a low rumble echoed through the void as the dread surged, and it opened its mouth wider than reason would allow, unleashing a terrible wail that resonated with the despair of countless souls. In that moment of breathtaking terror, I knew with a sickening clarity. The symphony had only just begun, and I was about to become the conductor of an orchestra of horrors beyond imagination. And as the horrifying scream engulfed me, I felt my body freeze, paralyzed by the terror that promised a fate worse than death. I was locked in a corridor of stark shadows, yet the new horror looming before me eclipsed even the oppressive darkness that previously held me captive. Its presence rippled through the air, thick and tangible, as it uncoiled into the space where hope once resided. The abomination towered over me, its form a grotesque patchwork of limbs and shifting, glistening skin that appeared to shimmer with the anguish it had consumed. Every inch of it seemed both organic and otherworldly, a nightmare driven to existence by the very despair I had sought to defy. And I tried to back away, but my feet felt rooted to the ground as if the very shadows had taken hold of me again, anchoring me in place. The heartbeat drummed louder now, each pulse vibrating through my chest like an ominous warning that reverberated through the air. "You think you can escape your fate?" The figure hissed, inching back to my side, its sadistic grin stretching impossibly wide as it surveyed the horror I had unleashed. "You have drawn its gaze, and it will not overlook your challenge." The looming creature's eyes glowed like two hollow orbs, glassy and unfathomable, yet brimming with an ancient wrath. It reached down, its elongated fingers curling with a slow deliberation, reflecting a predatory hunger as it hovered closer. A roiling fog began to seep from its form, tendrils of vapor that thrummed with dark energy, twisting through the air toward me, wrapping around my throat with a chilling grip. "Join the wailing souls," the creature intoned, its voice a guttural rasp that sent shivers racing down my spine. "Taste their despair. Become part of the symphony you tried to silence." I struggled to breathe, knots of panic forming in my chest as my vision blurred. The very air turned suffocating, thick with the unmistakable stench of decay and the sweet, sickly aroma of despair. I was drowning in the negative energy, its weight pressing on me like a vice, with desperation clawing at my heart. I focused on the shard still clutched in my trembling hand, a jagged remnant of light that had pierced the darkness. It felt warm against my skin, a pulse that seemed to resonate with my frantic will. I had to harness it again, perhaps transform this chaos into something more than defeat. Gathering every ounce of strength, I pressed the shard to my chest, close to my beating heart, and closed my eyes. "No, you don't control me," I screamed, plunging into the depths of my own emotions, battling the memories of regret and guilt that fused with the echoes of the tortured souls surrounding me. I would not become a pawn in this dark game. For a fleeting moment, the shadows waned, and a surge of strength coursed through me. I poured my will into the shard, feeling the raw energy ignite my body in a brilliant glow. The creature screamed, a sound of fury and disbelief that curdled the air. But in that instant of empowerment, something unthinkable happened. The creature faltered, its limbs twitching as if it were grappling with an unseen force. My triumph was short-lived, however, as the horrified realization struck me. The darkness within me was not content to be ignored or subdued. It was awakening, writhing with furious intent. Mirroring the grotesque entity before me, I felt a raging storm surging through my very being. But instead of controlling it, the energy spiraled out of my grasp, swirling and expanding like a vortex of shadows consuming everything in its path. Voices anguished, chaotic screamed inside my mind, a cacophony of disbelief and sorrow clamoring to break free. No, I gasped, recognizing the voice of the figure next to me mingling with the soul-wrenching cries. You're losing control, conductor. The symphony will not be silenced nor contained. You will only amplify the chaos. Panic clawed inside me as I fought against the overwhelming force. The once helpful shard, which had been my beacon of hope, now seemed a catalyst for my undoing. The darkness surged, and the ground beneath me trembled, the very fabric of reality beginning to fray at the edges. The ancient hunger has awakened, the figure roared, laughter laced with madness echoing in the chaos. It will rise, and you will be the source of its power. The shadows twisted into a vortex, dragging me closer to the figure. I felt a sharp tug, an otherworldly pull that separated me from all sense of self-control. I screamed, and my voice blended with those of the souls trapped in this horrific symphony, each note more despair-filled than the last. And just as I thought the darkness would consume me whole, a blinding flash erupted from the shard. The fiery light leapt forward, exploding like a supernova, engulfing everything, cleansing the shadows for a fleeting moment. But it wasn't liberation I felt. Instead, it was the gnawing grip of despair tightening around my heart, squeezing out the light. My final glimpse before the explosion swallowed me whole was of the creature, its gaping maw widening, releasing a horrific sound that echoed with the promise of chaos yet to come. In that moment eclipsed by blinding light, I realized, with a sickening twist in my gut, that the symphony had not ended. Instead, it had merely been interrupted, waiting with bated breath to continue its nightmarish melody, and the realization struck anew somehow. I had become the maestro in a grotesque orchestra that awaited its next note. What horror lay in the shadows, and how much time remained before it took me as its first sacrifice. The cacophony faded, replaced by a stillness that gnawed at my sanity. The shards of light had dimmed into an oppressive twilight, the remnants of their brilliance glimmering like faint stars against a backdrop of looming darkness. I stood there, disoriented, my lungs constricted as I gasped for breath that felt heavy with impending betrayal. Shadows now danced playfully around me, weaving through the silence like playful demons, taunting me with their flickering tease. The figure had retreated into the depths of that insatiable blackness, its laughter echoing in mocking tones. You thought the light was salvation, but brightness breeds its counterpart, and you swim deeper into the darkness of your own making. It taunted. I clutched the shard desperately, my heart pounding like thunder as I struggled to regain my focus. Each fleeting flash of memory and despair cascaded through me, reminding me of unwelcome truths, my failures, my missed opportunities, guilt gnawing like a ravenous rat against my insides. It was then that shadows began to take form, solidifying into grotesque creatures, a congregation of the damned. Faces emerged, contorted in agony, eyes hollow and pleading. They clawed at the edges of my perception, whispering their stories of despair, their pain wrapping around me like chains. I stumbled backward, the sickly sweet scent of rot clawing at my nostrils as I stumbled onto a fractured mosaic of memories crystallized in the ground. I tried to sift through them, reaching out to grasp the threads of what had fractured. It wasn't the weariness of physical exhaustion that overwhelmed me. It was the sheer weight of loss exuding from each visage. You hold their fate in your hands, conductor? rasped a skeletal figure emerging from the ground as if birthed from the very essence of sorrow. They yearned to be heard, to escape this vicious cycle of torment. But with each heart-wrenching story they shared, I felt an echoing dread pulse through me, my own suffering mirrored in their cries. You must connect the notes between their hearts. Release us, they clamored, their voices pitching into a maelstrom of desperation. And there it was, a rhythm swelling beneath the noise, an ominous pulse that threatened to swallow us whole. Release? I whispered into the air filled with torment. Release what? I am bound to this darkness, no different than you. Their lamenting soaked into my flesh, intertwining with grief that numbed my resolve. The distance between me and the shadows began to blur, and an invisible thread tugged insistently at my core, leading me deeper into the void. I stumbled forward, mesmerized by the allure of their anguish, my heart racing with morbid curiosity. Join us, they beckoned, an ethereal chant swelling around me as if woven into the very air I inhaled. You carry the echoes of despair. Let them flow through you. Give us a voice, and in return, we will guide you through the darkness. Their desperate plea rolled through my mind, sinking deep within my soul as I felt the shard becoming an extension of myself, resonating with the turmoil entwined in my memories. But just as I grasped the alluring call for unity, the shadows revealed their true faces. Their eyes dripped with corrosive malice, rancid grins spread across gaunt features, and suddenly, I knew I was not saving anyone. I was becoming the architect of their misery, an unwilling vessel for their unending lament. No, I screamed, recoiling as a flash of clarity pierced through the dread. I refused to conduct this sorrow, but the shadows converged, drowning my defiance in a torrent of rage as the sharp, biting edges of their pain tore at my very essence. Beneath that crushing pressure, I felt the dread sliding into the abyss of my mind, the scattered fragments of my sanity slipping away like grains of sand. And then it happened. The darkness surged anew, coiling around me, and I became the conduit, the vessel of their dreadful orchestra, the sacrifices of countless souls pouring forth from my own grief-stricken heart. The air screamed with every note, sharper than blades. A hellish symphony of lamentation ensued, drowning out my consciousness until I was merely an echo of existence. As I surrendered, waiting for that final chord, the ground trembled beneath me. The shadows, no longer just tendrils but full figures, danced in a grotesque waltz, swinging like marionettes in a horrific ballet. And from their ageless cries, something primal unfurled in the depths of me, awakening a slumbering hunger that craved more than mere harmonies of anguish. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the vortex of despair, its features both familiar and distorted, a reflection of my own torment, yet twisted with malice. It pointed a bony finger at me, the voice echoing like thunder. You are merely the harbinger. The true conductor lies within, waiting to be unleashed. You will become the bane of existence, the architect of carnage. The shadows recoiled, then surged forward, amplifying their cries, and I realized with sickening dread that the true horror had never left me. It was simmering just beneath the surface, waiting for its moment to spill forth and transform my existence into an endless nightmare. As their anguish engulfed me completely, I could only wonder who would survive when the symphony erupted in a violent crescendo, and something deep within me answered. In the realm of darkness, survival was merely an illusion, and in a heartbeat, everything shifted. A window, no, a gateway ripped open before me, yawning wide with a malevolent promise. I stood at the edge, the pulsing energy of despair beckoning me to leap into the abyss it offered. Would I step in and embrace the terror, or would I fight against the awakening that beckoned me toward the malevolence that awaited? As the shadows closed in, I could feel the darkness swirling around me, eager to pull me inside. I clutched the shard tight to my chest, feeling its warmth waning as I readied to make my choice. But the choice slipped away from my fingertips, and everything abruptly fell silent. I awoke, gasping for air, disoriented by a piercing cold that wrapped around me like a vice. I was no longer in the wretched abyss nor amidst the haunting melodies. The world felt different, yet eerily familiar. I could see it now. My apartment, The room bathed in a muted, sickly light. The piano still occupied its corner. A shadow of the horror I had glimpsed, and I breathed in deeply, almost expecting the scent of despair to linger in the air. But it was replaced by a sterile cleanliness that cut against the enduring memory of anguish. Panic fluttered in my chest as I scanned the emptiness. Where were the shadows? Where was the child? But as my heart resumed its frantic thumping, a chilling laughter burst forth from the piano, reverberating against the walls. "Welcome back, conductor." A grin unfurled across my face, yet it wasn't my own. The voice that spoke was honeyed and malicious all at once, echoing with the essence of countless lost souls, the children, the lovers, those who had been summarily swallowed by their own despair. In that moment, realization crushed down upon me like an iron weight. "You thought you could escape?" echoed the child from before, now clear and sinister. "You have always been part of the orchestra." The laughter thickened, layered in echoes that entwined like serpents, slithering through the air. I stumbled back, fear prickling my skin. As the piano keys began to dance, pressed by an unseen force, the music spilling out into the room in a macabre serenade. "Now, would you like to play a duet?" the dark child asked, its figure materializing from the shadows, luminous and shrouded in dread, eyes glistening like shards of glass. I tasted iron on my tongue as dread consumed me. The being was not an embodiment of my fears, but rather an extension of my own despair, an inseparable part of myself that I had awakened. "No!" I shouted, but the words twisted in the air, lost among the mournful notes that spiraled around me. The shadows were everywhere now, layers of them like a thick fog, reaching for me, grasping at my limbs. "You cannot fight what you are," it chanted gleefully. Then the room darkened, swirling around, transforming into something surreal. I glimpsed fragments of my past, the laughter, the joy, all cut down by the razor-sharp edges of my regrets. As the figures materialized from the recesses of the walls, remnants of countless lost souls, their hollow gazes stared back at me, relentlessly demanding recognition. "Join us," they whispered, cries mingling with the seductive undertones of the childish melody, each note rich with sorrow, a heavy weight calling to my heart. "We are your family, your legacy." I felt the shards slip from my grasp, clattering against the floor. I was merging into the music. It permeated every fiber of my being, claiming ownership of my essence. The piano throbbed, its melody swelling to a catastrophic crescendo of twisted perspectives, insatiable in its yearning. I wasn't merely conducting an orchestra of the damned. I had become a symphony myself, woven into the very fabric of suffering. And then I understood with horrifying clarity. The darkness would never be quenched. It craved a conductor, a master of its haunting refrain. I had awakened a truth buried deep within me, an orchestra of horrors I could not escape. My existence was forged in sorrow, and now I was bound to it, the ultimate conductor of despair. "Your soul belongs to me," the child whispered, curling its bony fingers around my wrist, sealing the bond. "Embrace your role. Guide them into the light and darkness simultaneously." I fell to my knees, the weight of the bond binding me deeper into the symphony, the weight of my decisions igniting an irrevocable transformation. The laughter crescendoed, swelling into a ghastly jubilance, a promise of power tied to my fate. I rose again, infused with a terrifying understanding. I was not merely a cog in their symphonic wheel. I was the casket for souls. As I placed my fingers on the piano keys, I knew that I was now part of something more sinister than I had ever envisioned. And as I played, a new melody spilled forth, an intoxicating mix of joy and despair, illuminating the room with an unholy glow, and I realized the gates of my torment had simply swung open, allowing me to conduct the eternal echoes of anguish that would serenade the shadows forevermore. The last note rang out, and suddenly everything faded to white. The laughter quieted, and in brazen silence, I understood. I wasn't just part of the symphony. I had become its master, ready to orchestrate the horrors that would echo eternally, an endless dark waltz of despair. And as the laughter faded, the room swallowed me whole. Moments before a final, chilling echo whispered through the air, "Welcome to forever."